Artistic Gamer 7, and welcome back to some more Sims 4 D&D Create a Sim, where I take my D&D creations and try to recreate them into Sims, which in some cases goes pretty well. In other cases, not so much. well, honestly, I think all of them have turned out well, and I've liked how all of them turned out, but in retrospect and like in relation to how they are supposed to look, the way that I drew them, that's where it's sort of changed. Some of them due to the limitations of Sims, even with the CC. Obviously, they're not going to look as close as I wish them to be, but I still am really happy with how pretty much all of them have turned out. There are a few that I'm more happy with, and a few that are like, I like them, I think they turned out well, but they're not spectacularly amazing. Like, you know, they're a little bit lower on the pole of how I liked how they turned out. But today, as you could probably tell, we have a alien here, and I actually, in terms of D&D, would be calling her an alien. I specifically came up with a name for it, and I would have to actually, like, sort of make stats and stuff for it, homebrew stats, which is what I'm planning on doing if I ever use her or for any reason. But I basically called her a Tanku, which would be like the planet that she originated from, and she's now on this new planet, which is definitely quite a bit different from hers, because obviously I didn't want to go super futuristic, or what we would call futuristic, with her, just because the way D&D is set, a lot of D&D stuff looks more medieval, more older, so I still took a futuristic vibe from our turns, but then tried to tone it down a bit, because I still want her to definitely look odd and out of place, but not as extremely as much as it would be if I tried to go like super futuristic with it. But one of the things I was really excited about when creating this character in Sims is that I did find a thing that gave like an extra set of arms. It was mainly intended for males, and the way that it was supposed to work was actually closer to the shoulder and supposed to blend more into the actual other joint of the arms, but on the females it does something really awkward and looks like it's coming out of the side of their chest. It just didn't look quite right, so, and ultimately, like, I decided to remove those, because as you should have already seen, that my drawing, she actually has 4 arms, so with the thing with her, there was some limitations compared to the drawing that I have with Sims. Sims are obviously set up more like humans, even though we have these other occult races like aliens, vampires, mermaids, such and such. But they all have a very superhuman-esque vibe to them, and they're, sadly, especially with the aliens, there is not as much customization options as I sort of wish to make your aliens look super unique, and some of them, like, depending on whether or not you wanted to have, like, different races that lived on Sixum, maybe some of them looked a lot different, like, some of them had, like, these unique features, like, either they have less fingers or more arms or whatever it may be. Like, those would have been cool options to sort of have, and or like they have like these things that look like gills, but obviously they wouldn't function like gills because gills are for underwater, but you get what I'm saying. Different things like that, skin features that maybe like we don't have, just like things to really make them look different, other than the fact that they have different eye options, and their eyes tend to be a little bit larger, and they have colored skin. That is our main option, and at one point I think aliens wasn't even allowed to have hair, which is sort of weird to me, because just because they're from another planet doesn't mean they couldn't have hair. I totally am fine with aliens not having hair, but not having the option to also give them hair was a little strange. But anyway, so I haven't even said her name. Her name is Nairi, so Nairi Oubula. She technically is only supposed to have 3 fingers along with a thumb, and then 3 toes, just in general. Big toe, and then 2 other toes. And she has 4 arms. She does have, like, the gill-like things, but they wouldn't be gills for her. She has these antennas. She has these these features on her skin. Like, that's not paintings. That's actually supposed to be sort of like raised skin on her face. Obviously, I'm going to be limited on those features for Sims, but I did try my best to, like, accentuate more of her cheekbones to try to give that feature a little bit more. I technically don't know if I tried to use them, but sometimes when you use certain skin details, I did try to use, like, I had this one thing that was meant for, like, someone made CC for aliens that gives them, like, these rigid things on their cheek and on their, like, their eyebrows areas and stuff like that. And I did put them on her, and I think I tried to put the little gill things I have, but because of the skin detail I used on her, sometimes certain skin details completely cover up a lot of stuff. Even when it comes to some makeup, I can't use some makeup when it comes to certain skin details, because some makeup sits underneath it in a way, and others sit on top of it, so just depending on those particular things, depends on whether or not it will show up with those skin details. Now, I do technically have some antenna that looks more like hers, sort of like the bug, almost like antennas, but it looked a little strange on her, and I actually decided to go with these antenna-like things. One, it would add a little bit of that weirdness, try to take the fact that I can't have those, like, cheek features on her, and put that on there in a way to give her more of a distinct look. And I will say, when it comes to her makeup, I settle upon these things coming, like, from her bottom lip and from her eyes, and I really wish I would have went with the circles on the cheek, because looking back on it now, I actually sort of like them better, but oh well. So now let's get into her little bit of her D&D stuff. So, as we've mentioned, she is an alien. She is actually going to be the class of fighter and sorcerer. Her fighter is Psi Warrior, while her sorcerer is a subclass of aberrant mind that just has to bring in the alien ties in some ways. I wanted her to have, like, mind, psychic powers. I think with the aberrant mind, there's, like, something, like, technically embedded in you or on you or, like, in your head. But with her, I would just go with it's because she simply is an alien. She has these abilities naturally given to her, in a way. So that's sort of where I was going to go with that. And the fighter part is because she literally is sort of a bit crazy when it comes to fighting. She comes from a planet that at one point used to be, like, super war-ridden, and they were each different tribe and race and stuff like that on that planet was very prideful of strong warriors and fighters and things like that. So that's how she was sort of grown up and raised, and it's come to a point where the planet is sort of more becoming peaceful, and most people have come to terms with that and are perfectly fine with that and don't mind it at all. But she was just so into this mindset that she's like, So she decided to spice up her life a little bit, tried to go exploring outside the planet to see how that'd go, ended up on whichever planet she would have wound up in for the D&D story, with probably most likely crashing, just because of her personality. And then sort of exploring and learning more about this foreign world that she's come across, and most likely with D&D things there's a lot of fighting, so therefore she would fit in perfectly fine. She would be quite happy with all of that chaos. Now, in terms of Sims, even though she is, like, really crazy about fighting and she likes fighting, she still comes from a very, very intelligent species, so I did give her the nerd brain aspiration, and the main traits that I focused on was genius, bookworm, and self-absorbed, because she thinks that she's amazingly strong and one of the best fighters, warriors out there, all this stuff sort of situation. Those would be her three main ones if I can't get the one mod to work, because I am going to be putting all of these D&D characters into one household and see what happens, thanks to using MCC to allow the maximum amount in a household to be higher. I also like the thought of her being very into fitness and very active in a way, and very much about just making herself strong, but also being a genius and a bookworm, because for some reason, a lot of times, stereotypically, those two do not get put together. If you're super into working out and super into fitness and things like that, you're associated with most likely being dumb. And if you're a genius bookworm, you're most likely associated with being puny and, like, tiny and stuff like that. But even if the majority of people that fit into those things, that doesn't mean everyone fits into those things. So that was, like, one of the big things. Like, I still wanted her to be extremely smart and intelligent and be prideful of the fact that she is smart and intelligent, but also be strong. She would not, however, be very good at anything stealth-wise. That is just not a thing that I think she would be good at all. Now, as far as the other two traits that I will be adding on, there is one trait that I have went back and forth on, and might switch it out in the end to give it to be active instead, but I do have it listed as creative in parentheses. I do have active just as like a thing, because I have this stuff written down, just as a thing, because I was going back and forth. I sort of wanted her to be creative because coming to a new world, I think she would still want to introduce stuff from her world and like bring a different ideology, different inventions, a different like thinking process, like all this different stuff, and try to mesh it in with this new world that she's come into and create new things from it and show them also like things that they could do potentially with what they're given, because obviously she probably won't be able to do everything that she did on her own planet because resources would be different, but still she could take the knowledge from there and turn it into something using resources that are on this new planet. So that's part of the reason why I want to give her creative, but the other part of me does sort of want to give her active because I feel like I haven't put a strong enough hints to the fact that she is very much a fighter, literally. So I may change that to active, but the other one is an active sort of situation, which is Dance Machine, which actually does slightly tie back into the last character, the character that should have been before this. I actually messed up on one of my characters and thought I uploaded them when I didn't, so they got uploaded a little bit later than they was meant to, but I uploaded them. So it's good. It's all fine. But yeah, that would be like, she would be one of the last ones that turns into the group that is with Muse, Forsythia, Serena, and Minka. So, and a lot of them sort of, especially Muse in particular, has sort of like, you know, a vibe when it comes to dancing. So I do want them to sort of connect over dancing a little bit. I actually, one of the group shots is of them dancing for Sims in like the Sims realm of versions of them. So yeah, this is Nairi. I hope you like her. If you've watched My Not So Berry, you might notice there is a character that appears in the background here and there that looks slightly similar to her, and that is because I did take this sim and slightly alter her and put her into the Not So Berry save. I don't remember if I changed her name or not. I don't think I changed her last name. Oubula is still her last name, but I may have changed the first name. Not really sure. But yeah, really wanted to have a few options of aliens in the world, especially going into Gen 3 with the yellow generation of Not So Berry. So yeah, technically this sim is in My Not So Berry, just slightly altered, not the same mindset. The other version of her is very much kind-hearted, loves recycling and doing things with plants and her children. So very much different personality, but I just took the basically base mold and then took her over, and yeah. Anyway, so yeah, this is Nairi. I honestly do really love how she turned out. Yeah, there's a few things that are off when it comes to how I drew her versus how she looks here. But I honestly think she's absolutely stunning and beautiful and cool looking, and like with some of these pictures I took of her, she definitely, to me, gave off like this powerful aura about her, like a very like, yeah, I can do what I want sort of vibe. But yeah, let me know your thoughts about Nairi down in the comments below, and ultimately the group of 5 ladies that we have here. Definitely hope you're looking forward to the next one. Make sure you're subscribed so that you can see the next D&D character, as well as other things here on the channel. Like, comment, you know that love the YouTube goodiness. And I'll see you next time, hopefully. But for now, bye-bye.